Daniel 10. Daniel 10, we looked at verses 1 through 3 last time, and that was all. The last 3 chapters of the book of Daniel are talking about, Daniel is sharing the final vision that God gives Daniel. So Daniel, the first part of this, Daniel 10, verse 1, verses chapter 11 through, let me get my tongue out of my way here, y'all. Okay, Daniel 10:1 through Daniel 11:1 is the preparation for the vision. God actually gives Daniel some preparation for the vision, and Daniel did some things to be prepared for the vision. Then chapter 11 verse 2 through chapter 12 verse 3, I believe it is the actual vision that God gives Daniel. And then chapter 12 verse 4 until the end is the final recapping and the final things. And so we're in the first part of this outline, first part of this study, Daniel chapter 10. The last time we looked at number 1, which is the setting under the preparation for the vision. The setting, that's verses 1 through 3. That's an incredible passage of Scripture. Daniel had been mourning, it says, for 3 weeks. Daniel had been alone. Probably, as we read a little further, we're going to see that Daniel was by the Tigris River. The Tigris River is the closest spot is about 25 miles away from the capital of Babylon. So Daniel was not in the capital. Daniel had gone away from the capital and was spending some time alone with God. I believe he was praying and seeking the Lord. Daniel had been fasting. He had not tasted any tasty food, he said. In fact, most scholars believe that the only thing Daniel had, at least during that 3-week time frame, was bread and water. That's all. And so Daniel had been fasting and humbling himself before God and getting ready. Now tonight, we come to Daniel chapter 10, verse 4, and we come to number 2 in our little breaking down this outline of this. And so we see a vision of a heavenly being. A vision of a heavenly being. So if I say a word for you, I want somebody to define this word for me. And the word is a theophany. Theophany. Can anybody define the word theophany? Nobody knows? Okay, Dr. Gene. Okay, and when you have this understanding, what do you see in this vision? Dudley? Okay, so you actually see, I believe, deity. Okay, the word theophany actually means to see deity physically. Okay, to see deity physically. Doc was right on. You know, it's a vision that you have, but you see deity physically. Now, we have already had one theophany in the book of Daniel. Does anybody remember where it was? Huh? In the fire. That's right. Daniel chapter 3, it says that the 3 brothers were told bow the knee. They didn't. Nebuchadnezzar threw them into the fiery furnace and then looked in there and said, wait a minute, weren't there 3? And he said, but there are 4. And he says, one of them looks like a son of the gods, is what Nebuchadnezzar said. He couldn't figure out any other way to describe what Nebuchadnezzar saw. He says, I saw something look like a son of God, like the son of the gods. He knew that it was something divine, even though he was a pagan. Okay, he knew that it was something divine, a heavenly vision. And Nebuchadnezzar saw that. By the way, you know who else saw that? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because he was in there visiting with them. Okay, I want to give you a personal bias about this. I believe that most, if not all, visions, when somebody sees somebody like that, it's Jesus. Okay, I don't know for sure. I can't prove it for sure. But I want to say to you that That's what a theophany is. I believe Christ came to the three brothers or the three friends there in the fiery furnace, and Jesus was with them. It was a son of the gods. And I want to say to you, I think it was Christ. Today, I want to say to you that Daniel, in this vision, in verses 4 through 9, he sees a theophany. Okay? Daniel sees a theophany. So we come to see that tonight. So, Daniel says, verse 4, on the 24th day of the first month, while I was by the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris. Now, Daniel tells us several things. Now, he comes to be very, very specific about this. Folks, if anybody ever wanted to doubt the truthfulness of Daniel, why would Daniel be telling us an exact date and an exact time frame and an exact place? Okay? He tells us when it happened, the 24th day. Now, the first month in the Jewish calendar is the month Nisan or Nisan, however you say it, Nisan, Nisan. And so it was in our calendar, if it was the 24th day of the month, the first month, it would be the 24th of January. That's our first month, okay? Well, the Jewish calendar, it's Nisan, and actually, it's in the area of March and April, okay? In that time frame. The first month of the year for the Jews was in that time frame. But it was the first month of Nisan, Nisan, okay, the 24th day, and it was there. And then Daniel says, I was by the Tigris River. The Tigris is one of the main rivers. The other one is the Euphrates River, and they ran kind of parallel for a while, but the Tigris and the Euphrates were the main rivers in that part of the world, and Daniel was down there by the Tigris River. Okay, verse 5. Daniel says, and I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a certain man dressed in linen, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold of Uphaz. Okay? Now, I want you to see there's some important words. Now, Daniel says, I looked up. Okay? Now, I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't just looking up. And so Daniel was looking somewhere else, and then he says he looked up, and he saw something that looked like a man. Okay? But it's beyond a man. You're going to see that as we go on in these verses. And so he says, saw a certain man. And then he says, he was dressed in linen. Okay? Now, what color most of the time is linen? White. In fact, they say it's a pure white, a stark white. And so it is a picture here of purity. And so it says that he was dressed in linen. By the way, if you go back into the Bible, many times the priests dressed in linen for certain things, white linen. And also when angels appear, if they talk about the garb of an angel, I've never seen an angel, so I can't tell you what they wear. But it says in the Bible that when you see an angel, if it talks about what their garb is, it's most of the time something that's pure white. And sometimes it even calls it linen white, okay, or white linen. And so it's a sign of purity. I want to say to you, this is a picture of a holy personage, okay? But then it says he was wearing a belt of pure gold of Uphaz. Now, I'm not certain what it means by Uphaz unless that's where they got the gold from. And I was reading today in my devotion time, or yesterday in my devotion time, and one of the places that kings would send for gold was Uphaz. Okay? And so maybe they were known as a place where you could get pure gold and the purest kinds of gold. Folks, gold always is a sign of royalty, but gold also can be a sign of deity, of God. Okay? So, thus far we see a man who is dressed in pure white, and he has a gold belt, and it must be the purest kind of gold, almost like a gleaming kind of gold. Now, verse 6 says, his body also was like beryl, and his face had the appearance of lightning. His eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a tumult. Now, folks, right here is the divider away where you know this wasn't just a man. This was not a human person, okay? Now, his body was like beryl. Okay, I got to get my notes up here where I can read them. Yes, ma'am. Topaz is another thing. Does anybody have a different stone, beryl or topaz? Another one that I saw is the stone chrysolite. Chrysolite. It's a golden colored precious stone, beryl or topaz, and it's a very precious stone. And his body was gleaming. One commentator said his body was gleaming like a golden fire. Must have been shiny and pretty and gorgeous to see that beryl. His body was like beryl. Then it said his face had the appearance of lightning. Now, I want you to think about, have you ever seen lightning? Especially at night, okay? You know, lightning can take a black night and just, it lights up and you can see, you know, forever, right? Now think about that on a human face. So what is that in a human face? And so the face must have been brilliant, glowing. Again, how would a face glow? How do you make your face glow? By the way, we know of someone whose face glowed. Moses. And when did Moses' face start glowing? After he was in the presence of God. Moses went up, remember he was with God, and spent all that time. They were fixing up those stones and everything, and Moses was spending time with God, and said he came down off that mountain and his face was glowing. In fact, his face glowed so much that he had to wear a veil over his face because nobody could look at it. Listen, this is something that tells me this had to be a divine thing. This is a divine thing, a divine person. You know, something of deity when you get in the presence of God. Then it said his eyes were like flaming torches. What another brilliant picture, but something that is burning and again giving off light. And then it says his arms and his feet like the gleam of polished bronze. And one man said it would almost be, again, a shiny kind of a thing. Polished metal almost shines, okay? And if the light hits it, it does shine, all right? And so Daniel says, here it is. His body was like beryl, face had the appearance of lightning, his eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze. And then it says, and the sound of his words like the sound of a tumult. Now, the New International Version Bible uses the word multitude, and the Amplified Bible uses the word multitude of people, okay? I was trying to think what sound that might be like, but Mrs. Wagner, yes, ma'am. A roaring of the sea. Wow. Ooh, I like that. By the way, if you go to any place where there's ocean or, you know, the waves, they always make noise. Even if they're calm, they make noise. But buddy, when there's stuff happening and there's great big waves, they noisy. They're noisy. If you go to, Niagara Falls or one of the great waterfalls in the world, they're noisy. I want you to think about this. If you were to go to like a Super Bowl or one of those things, and your team scored a touchdown, and everybody in the stands goes berserk. And the decibel level just increases incredibly. That's what it says. The voice was this incredibly loud sound. Okay? So, here's the question. Who is this? Or what is this? Okay? So I want to tell you. Yes. Revelation 1, yeah. And if you look at Revelation 1, I'll flip over there real fast. Revelation chapter 1, verse 13, starting at verse 12. Then I turned to the voice that was speaking with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. In the middle of the lampstands, I saw one like a son of man, clothed in a robe, reaching to the feet, and girded across his chest with a golden sash. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And his head and his hair were white, like white wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze when it was made to glow in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of many waters. All right? And who was that? That was Christ. There's no question about that in Revelation 1. That's Jesus. Okay? Sounds a whole like that in Daniel chapter 10. All right? And so I want to say to you, I think that this is a theophany. Now, some scholars have said, but wait a minute. When you get to verse 10, okay? And in verse 10, when the being, I want to say that verse 10 is an angel. When the angel touches Daniel, Daniel has just collapsed. And when the angel touches Daniel, helps him get up, and then starts talking to him, and Daniel starts to get these instructions from the angel, then that angel goes to say, listen, man, I was coming 3 weeks ago. And I had a battle with the prince of Persia. I'm going to tell you that that's demonic beings. We'll just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. And he says, for 3 weeks we've been doing battle. And Michael the archangel came, Michael the angel came to help me. And now I'm here to deliver the message from God to you. God sent me with a message. I want to say to you, I think that's a different being than found in verses 4 to 9. 4 to 9, I think, is the theophany. I think that's Christ. Then an angel comes in verse 10. By the way, there are times when you see God, and then in just a little bit, an angel comes and delivers the message. God isn't always the one that delivers the message. It's an angel of God that delivers the message, okay? So I want to say to you, just so we'll clarify that, I think that this is a theophany. I think that Daniel saw Jesus. By the way, isn't that cool? Him and his buddies. All these guys, man, they're captives in a land. He got to see Jesus. Okay? Now, I love this. Look at verse 7 here. This is cool. He says, now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, while the men who were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. Okay? They ran away to hide themselves. So all the other guys that were with Daniel, by the way, they may have been spiritual guys. I mean, they may have been people that love the Lord. We don't know. But everybody that was with Daniel except Daniel, whatever happened, did they hear something? But they did not see what Daniel saw. Daniel says, I was the only one that saw it. By the way, if that happens today, what do they say? You're a crazy man, right? Hey, you're nuts. You're out of your mind. Ooh, and you're just crazy. Well, Daniel wasn't crazy. Daniel knew what he was seeing, okay? But Daniel says, all these other guys, they got scared, and so they ran away. Now, I want to say to you, and I want to ask you a question. Was Daniel afraid? At this moment, is Daniel afraid? I want to tell you, yes, he is. He's scared out of his hide. Okay? You don't think he is? Watch. I'm going to show you in just a second. Daniel is scared out of his mind. He is shaking in his boots. He is trembling. This is a frightening, frightening thing that dealing with, okay? And Daniel was scared just like his buddies, but here's the difference. All of his buddies, what did they do? Like a covey of quail, man. You have a dog jump in the middle of a covey of quail. You know what those covey of quail do? They go every which way. Like that, man. They're gone. And you know what? And here's Daniel standing there. All right? Yes, ma'am.
Mine says great fear and great terror fell upon him.
Yeah, there's fear on Daniel too. But right now in this one, it says great fear was on all them other guys. It says great dread, mine says, fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. Okay? And so all these other guys ran off. And so here's Daniel by himself, standing there by himself. All right. Absolutely. It doesn't say. It says they did not see anything, but it doesn't say they didn't hear something. Did they hear the voice of God? I got to tell you, if it's that loud, you know, like a waterfall or big loud waves crashing, that could be a little bit frightening. Okay? Yeah, and so, buddy, they're heading for cover. And I got to tell you, has there ever been times you wanted to run for cover? I'm telling you, there's times. It's like, we're going to go find a place to hide, you know? And let's get out of here, all right? So, verse 8. So I was left alone. So Daniel says, so I was left alone and saw this great vision. Now, notice what he says. Yet no strength was left in me, for my natural color turned to a deathly pallor, and I retained no strength. Now I want to show you something. Do you see what Daniel says? Not one time, but twice. Daniel says, I had no strength. Okay? When you don't have strength, you know where I first feel it? In my legs. I had a situation happen where I had a kidney stone, and we broke up the kidney stone, and I bled into my kidneys because it lacerated my kidneys, and I take Coumadin. And we didn't realize I was bleeding into my kidneys till I had almost bled to death. And I was very, very weak. You could ask Pam. I could just attempt to stand up. And not only could I not hardly stand, but I would just pass out. And I mean, when I passed out, there was no stopping me except the floor. Okay? Bam, you're on the floor. And then in a little bit, you come to on the floor. And it's like, oh, man, you know, and you come to. No strength. Daniel doesn't say it one time. He says it twice. No strength was left in me. I retained no strength. In literally one sentence, Daniel says it twice. I had no strength. My strength completely was gone.
Is that the reason why he didn't run?
No, I don't think so. I just think that he knew God was speaking to him, but it was still scary. And then he says, my natural color turned to a deathly pallor. Have you ever seen somebody and you know something's about to happen because you look at them, there's no color in their face, so they're either white or gray. And you know that if something doesn't change really fast, they're going to be on the ground. Okay? Because all the blood's leaving their face, all the blood's leaving their head, and they fixing to pass out. Something bad is about to happen. And Daniel says, I had no strength. I was white, or I was a deathly pallor, that gray, and I had no strength. All right? Then verse 9. But I heard the sound of his words. So Jesus, or whoever it is, God, the theophany, speaks to him. What does he say? Hi, Daniel. I don't know. By the way, this time it doesn't say what he says. In a little bit, we're going to understand the words. But this time, he speaks. Okay, Christ speaks. What did he say? Hi, Daniel. How you doing? What's going on? Hey, dude. Now, here's what Daniel says. And as soon as I heard the sound of his words, I fell into a deep sleep on my face with my face to the ground. Okay, Doc Snyder, I want to ask you a question. Gene, are you ready? Here's the question. When a person faints, which way do they normally fall? Forward. Okay? Most of the time. I had heard that. I wanted to ask a doctor and be sure. Okay? Do you understand what happened to Daniel? He passed out. Daniel says, I heard his voice. I heard his voice. And as soon as I heard his voice, I fell into a deep sleep on my face. Now, I don't know what you call that. He passed out. He fainted. Okay? And he says, with my face to the ground. Did he bounce? We don't know. Did he go down hard? We don't know. Okay? But Daniel passed out. Okay? Boom. He hits the ground. All right. Now, we come to verse 10. Man, we're doing good tonight, y'all. Woo-hoo! Okay, we're cranking. All right. So, now we come to number 3 in your outline under the preparation for the vision. Number 3 is... the interpreting angel's explanation. By the way, I didn't write these. I'm borrowing these from Miller. Okay, the interpreting angel's explanation. Right here, I believe the theophany leaves. I believe Christ leaves, and an angel comes. All right? And so Daniel says, then behold, a hand touched me. All right? He doesn't say how long he was out, but he was out cold. Out cold. Then he says, then behold. By the way, whenever you see the word behold, that always means it's a exciting thing or a startling thing. The word behold always means, pay attention here, y'all, there's something cool. All right? So Daniel said, behold, I saw this human figure. Now he says, then behold. Now what's happening? He's laying on the ground out cold. And he comes to. All right? And he says, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. Now you're laying on your face out cold. All right? And so here comes the hand or the hands. And what do? Did they get him all the way up on his feet? No. He didn't need to try to stand up on his feet. So you know what he needed to do? They just got him up on his hands and knees. Now, I'm not doing that for y'all because if I get down, I'm not getting back up. Okay? But so he was on his hands and knees, still down on the ground. All right? And so the angel now, I think that this is an angel that comes, and he's an interpreting angel. He's about to come and start telling Daniel some really cool stuff. But notice how he deals with Daniel. He deals with Daniel, begins to start with him where he is. Listen to me. Y'all, sometimes we're weak. And sometimes we're going to find ourselves laying flat on our face, passed out. And we didn't do anything bad or wrong. Listen, Daniel did nothing bad or wrong. Daniel was in the right place at the right time. He was doing what God wanted him to do, and God was going to speak to him. But listen, man, it was still scary. It was still something that was hard to deal with, and Daniel is laying flat on his face, flat on the ground. So the angel gets him up on his hands and knees, starting to wake him up and help him to get awake. All right? And so the angel helps him to do that. Verse 11. And he said to me, O Daniel, man of high esteem. By the way, he says that to him in Daniel chapter 9 too. Says, God holds you in high esteem. Well, here he says it again. Daniel, O Daniel, man of high esteem, understand the words that I am about to tell you and stand upright. For I have now been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Okay, so here comes the angel. The angel gets him up on his hands and knees, all right? And he's trying to figure out if he's, going to get his bearings about him. By the way, if you pass out, it takes you a little bit to get to where you want to stand up and Now, some guys, what do? Oh, I can get up, right? And so you try to get up. You know what happens to me when I do that? Normally, I right back down. So I'm in trouble. So, it doesn't work real good. But he says to Daniel, okay, now, but notice what he says to Daniel. Daniel, you are a man of high esteem. Now, always that means that you are someone that is precious to God. Church, do you understand? We're precious to God. Yes, Gene. Greatly loved or dearly beloved is another one of those terms that's used in some of the translations. Beloved, greatly loved, held in highest honor. Man, listen, God thinks you're precious. God thinks you're awesome. Listen, church, God loves us. He dearly loves us. He holds us in that highest place. He holds us in high esteem. Listen, God says, you're awesome. You're wonderful. You're incredible. I love you. I'm so grateful for you. All of those things, God holds us in that place. Okay? But then he says to Daniel, understand the words that I'm about to tell you. Now that literally means, Daniel, you need to pay really close attention to what I'm about to say to you. Daniel, you need to pay real close attention. That's what he's saying to Daniel. Okay? For now I have been sent to you. Here's what the angel is saying. God sent me to see you. Church, I said this before. We're going to see some principles about prayer next week when we come to this. This is awesome. This is powerful. Here's the first of those things. When you and I are praying, I believe that from the very first day when Daniel, 3 weeks earlier, had gone out to the Tigris River, I believe he'd been out there for 3 weeks or longer. And he was fasting, and I believe he was praying. And I believe that he was seeking God. I believe that he was saying to God, God, speak to me. Let me know what's going to happen to my people. God, they've gone back. Remember, they'd gone back to the land of Israel now, but things, were hard. Listen, just because God lets you go back doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And Daniel is saying to God, God, I really want to know about our people. I really want to know about the people of Israel. God, what's going to happen? God, what's going on? Listen to me. When you and I seek God, honestly, when we come to God and we say to God, God, I need you to show me. I need you to guide me. I need you to tell me. I need you to know that God wants you to understand. God doesn't hide stuff from us. God doesn't make it hard for us to discern. You know what our problem is? We don't pay attention, or we're expecting God to give us one answer and only that answer, and that's the only thing we're looking for. Listen to me. Sometimes you need to stop looking for that thing and start just paying attention, because God has something for you. But it may not be what you want to hear, okay? But God says, listen, man, the angel says, I have been sent to you. Now, do you see what the angel said to him? He said, Daniel, get up. Time to get up on your feet. Okay? And so he says, and when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Because the angel said, I've been sent to you, but before he said that to him, he said to him, get up. Stand up on your feet, Daniel. And so Daniel shakily gets up on his feet. We're out of time. Okay? So next time, I didn't think we'd make it this far, y'all, so we did good. Amen. We cranked tonight. That's good. All right, so next time we come to chapter 12, y'all,